Hey, welcome back, guys. So in this video, I'm going to break down 10 reasons why using no code will give you an advantage in your tech business, and 3 reasons why it could be a disadvantage depending on your situation. And just so you know, I have personally experienced the benefits of these 10 advantages, and I've personally experienced the pain of the 3 downsides. And I'll be breaking down how to exploit the good and solve the bad here in this video as well. So be sure to stick with me to the end. Without further ado, let's dive right in. Advantage number 1, building with no code is cheaper. And I might just add, it's a lot cheaper. Really, when you're wanting to build software, you have 4 options. 1, you can hire a development agency. Depending on the app, a typical dev agency will charge tens and even hundreds of thousands of dollars. No problem, depending on what your app does. Even overseas dev shops will cost you tens of thousands of dollars, and that's just for version 1. Then there's the upkeep, the updates, the bug fixes. Want to quickly change the color of a button and don't know how to code? Well, you might just get billed for that. I have a friend who owns a software company, and last I spoke with him, he was paying an overseas dev shop $30,000 a month just to keep his app going. Now, of course, there are a lot of variables that go into that number, but suffice it to say that no code is a lot cheaper. Option 2 would be to find the right technical co-founder. This is a good route if you can find one and don't want to bear the whole business by yourself, but the right one is hard to come by. And if you want a good one, you're going to need to pay up. Not necessarily in the form of salary, if you can sell them on your vision, but likely in the form of a bunch of ownership of your company. If your app flops, well, then you've both wasted a lot of your time. If your app takes off, well, then this option is going to be by far the most expensive of them all, in the form of opportunity cost. Your exit will be far less lucrative. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not advocating for being a solo founder only, but founder roles should be strategic. And with the rise of no code, finding a technical co-founder isn't quite as necessary as it once was. Option 3 is you could learn code yourself. This is a good option for many scenarios. And if you're looking to be a long-term employee of an already large tech company, this is the option I'd probably recommend. But if you got that entrepreneurial itch, or you have an idea you've been wanting to test, or if you want to be your own boss as a freelancer, learning to code will cost you lots of valuable time you don't have. In startups, speed wins, especially if you're wanting to compete in a red ocean market. The first few sharks to feed will usually win the most food. Option 4 is what I chose for our business, Revitize, and it paid off huge. Learn no code. Even if you decide to supplement it with code later on, no code is by far the least expensive way to get your idea off the ground. Do some research about which tool is right for you and your idea. I personally decided on Bubble as my primary tool of choice because I believe it's by far the most robust of the current no-code options. There is a learning curve, but it's far less steep than something like Python or JavaScript. For me, the learning curve and the build of my MVP took 2 months, and I didn't have any step-by-step learning academy to refer to, by the way. When we started building Revitize, we thought we'd build it using Bubble for a quick MVP, validate our idea, and then hire engineers to build it elsewhere. But here we are, 4.5 years later, still using Bubble. It's a no-code tool that I would highly recommend checking out. Advantage number 2, no code is faster. Remember how I said my MVP took me 2 months? Well, sincerely, I'd estimate that what I built then would now take me around 4 or 5 days to build. As you get into the swing of things and figure stuff out, your speed to build is exponentially faster. And once you've got speed, you've got unfathomable power.
What kind of power?
Unfathomable. It's without fathom.
Seriously though, your clients or your customers will love you, and you'll constantly get emails like this and comments from everyone around you asking you how in the world did you build this stuff so quickly. But the greatest part about the speed of no code is that speed and agility simply wins in business. It gives you a massive advantage. On to advantage number 3, product control. I don't know about you, but I'm a little bit OCD and particular about how I want things. In the past, I've hired gig workers on sites like Fiverr, and I've expected one thing in my head, and I've received a completely different thing from what I was expecting. This is okay sometimes, but when it's your special idea, your baby, you want what's in your brain to come through on the software. This is yet another reason why I absolutely love NoCode. Even without a technical background, with a little bit of NoCode knowledge, I can fine-tune and update my own product the way I want and the way my customers want. And nobody knows your customers like you do. Okay, so advantage number 4 is honed focus. Now, NoCode simply takes care of a lot of headaches for you. For example, while coders are having to bang their head against the wall searching endlessly for that missing comma or missing curly bracket that's causing a chain reaction of bugs in their app, I'm focused on customer feedback, product market fit, and how to win clients. While coders are specializing in back-end or front-end or UX, I'm focusing on the results my software brings to my customers. Once, while iterating on Revitize, we had a phone call from a client that absolutely made my day. He said something like this: "Guys, when I use your software, I don't know how to explain it, but it feels like it was meant for me and made for someone that gets my business needs, not made by some out-of-touch overseas developer that has no clue what I'm dealing with on the day-to-day." My heart doesn't melt often, but it melted that day. Along a similar vein, one thing we pride ourselves on is customer service. As the only developer for years, I've not only been able to build a winning product, but I've been able to pitch in and help with client success as well. Here's another melt my heart review we received. Richard, Rod, and especially Jordan have been super helpful with getting our text message campaign ready to launch. Blah, blah, blah. You get the idea. And here's another. Very user-friendly, great features, and Richard and Jordan have been super helpful. When you don't spend all your day fiddling with code, you have a bit more time for customer service, and that pays off. I keep getting compliments over and over again like I'm some superhero or something. And again, while it's nice to have, I'm not gonna lie, if I'm honest, I have to keep deferring the praise from myself to NoCode. It's simply a game changer. And on to advantage number 5, less maintenance. This one is huge. If you're not familiar with how a typical web software infrastructure works, there's frankly a lot of moving parts. And moving parts require bug fixes and maintenance and expert employees to solve those problems. With typical software, you or your team could be worrying about the front end and the back end, the database, the servers, the security, the compatibility with advancing browsers and operating systems, etc. And while NoCode absolutely does still require some maintenance, much of that is handled by the team that hosts your NoCode app. Again, so you can focus on results. One of my freelance clients told me about a friend of his who poured his savings into hiring developers to build this app of his dreams. It was going fairly well, but suddenly the mobile operating systems, iOS and Android, both got an update. They changed dramatically. His app, in its infancy, was no longer compatible with the new shift. He had some traction, but he didn't quite have enough revenue and runway to rebuild it all to be compatible with the new operating systems. So his business died. My client, who was this guy's friend, he asked me, worried about that inevitably happening to him down the road. It appeared he had 2 options. He could call Apple and beg them not to release anything anymore, a strategy with certain drawbacks, or he could pay me another massive chunk to rebuild everything. While I wouldn't have been too dismayed by the double payment, I decided to tell him the truth. The NoCode mobile app builder we were using costs a grand total of $39 to rebuild it to be compatible with new OS versions. And they do it all and resubmit it to the App Store for you. So, for the most part, NoCode gives you an extension of a dev team to handle upkeep and maintenance, totally included with your builder account. Advantage number 6, low security headache. Along the same lines, typical software companies need to worry excessively about hackers and security. When one of our clients asked me about our security standards, I wasn't sure, so I simply sent an email to Bubble asking them about their security standards. They sent me back a bunch of mumbo jumbo that sounded super secure, and I forwarded it along to my client. Client happy, problem solved. Now, I should mention that while Bubble has many security worries taken care of for you, they do allow you to set your own data privacy rules, which I'm a big fan of. And if you're interested in learning more, our full course covers how to set this all up in depth, so be sure to check that out. Advantage number 7, quick and easy integrations. Now, this honestly may be the most powerful benefit of them all. When prospective freelance clients ask me if NoCode can do this or can NoCode do that, the answer is usually either yes or yes, but with an integration. For example, can NoCode do artificial intelligence? Well, not particularly well, but it can integrate with artificial intelligence services and pull back the output. So basically, yes. If you're not familiar with APIs, they're essentially ways to hook one app up to another. And there are literally thousands of APIs out there that do an endless amount of cool stuff and can process and send you an endless amount of cool stuff back. For example, with Revitize, we use numerous APIs to enhance our app. To send and receive text messages, all from the app, we hook that up via API. To send ringless voicemail, we record our user's voice message in-app and then deliver them to a third-party service, which has the technology to slip a voice message into our user's voicemail. To send handwritten messages for that personal touch, our app uses an API to send instructions to a third-party robotic pen service, which then writes, packs, stamps, and mails each and every letter to each and every client, all automated. If you're interested in using APIs and external services to enhance your app, I'd recommend heading over to the Bubble plugin store or to something like public-apis.io to check out the near unlimited possibilities. And again, in my full NoCode Academy, I'll take you through how to hook up APIs, plugins, and other third-party integrations in a clear, concise, and step-by-step way so you can hit the ground running. Okay, advantage number 8 is client or customer wow factor. I realize that I've already kind of touched on this, peppered throughout all the other advantages, but this one is just too good not to make its own item on the list. If you're a startup founder, you can't get too much of the wow factor. And if you're a freelancer, you of course want to be a thought leader and on the cutting edge for your clients. NoCode gives you that. Although this guy wasn't a direct client of mine, I was helping him out a little bit and answering some questions and showed him a quick video demo of Revitize. This was his response. I went ahead and blurred out his French, but as you can see, the power of NoCode is turning heads. I think the only question is, what are you waiting for to learn and implement it for your customers and clients? All right, advantage number 9 is the amazing community. I'm not sure what it is. Maybe it's that dopamine high that every no-coder is on currently, but the no-code community is absolutely amazing. I'm personally a pretty terrible online networker, and still somehow I've managed to make great friendships and great business relationships, all because this movement simply attracts lots of really cool people. I've found great connections on Twitter, forums, Facebook, Telegram, Slack, and more. In short, the giving nature of no-coders is something I've benefited from tremendously, and I'm now trying to give back a little myself. Advantage number 10. Some cost-prohibitive business models are now viable. This one is very exciting, and frankly, I don't even think I have a total handle on what is possible now, but here are a few examples I've discovered. One problem we've seen with super small businesses is that they just don't have the budget to procure all the different software tools they could and should be using to enhance their tiny operation. Or they would like to have a custom-built app for their customers to use, but they just don't have the margin or vision for something like that. So they do their best to compete without it, and sometimes they get pummeled by the big brands on many fronts. Well, until now. Simply because no code can do things faster and cheaper than code can. So what used to be a cost-prohibitive business model is now a nice little honeypot of clientele. And those honeypots add up quite nicely. Another example is where ultra-niche industries don't have tools that fit perfectly for their needs, so they procure software that kind of works and gets the job done, but isn't picture perfect. They just make do. Well, with NoCode, there are hundreds of little niche industries just waiting, finally, for that perfect software to come along that was just meant for them. And let me tell you, when a client sees something that they perceive as made for them and their unique situation, they'll pull out their wallet faster than you can ask for it. So there you have it. There are my top 10 reasons why NoCode is the new major advantage in tech. Now, so that you can make a totally informed decision, let's get to the 3 disadvantages that I've dealt with and how to overcome each one. First, there are critics. There are skeptics. There are naysayers. And frankly, some of them may be investors or potential acquirers. For example, when we were originally pitching investors back in 2017, I'd say that probably, roughly 70% of them were totally okay with our tech stack. No issues whatsoever. But around 30% of them raised their eyebrows a bit. In fact, I can still remember one investor call where we told him about how we were built on bubble.io, and he suddenly said, "Wait, so you're telling me that you're betting your startup on another startup?" It caught me off guard a little bit, and my answer probably wasn't very good, but here's what I would say to him now. Bubble isn't just a startup, it's a movement. They just raised $100 million of funding. They care deeply about their customers' success, because if we don't succeed, they don't succeed. They also make a pretty reassuring promise to every single user on their platform. If by some crazy turn of events, this insanely popular and valuable platform did go out of business, they'd instantly release all the underlying code to their customers. So, will some investors and some acquirers not like that your app is built on NoCode? Maybe. But in my experience, as the NoCode movement generates more and more buzz, that skepticism is fading away fast, like really fast. NoCode is the obvious next shift in the way we build tech, and I think that those who can accurately peek into the future will know that. Disadvantage number 2 is scalability concerns. This is probably the most widely used critique by the naysayers. Their argument usually goes something like, well, yeah, it's pretty cool what you can build, but that can't actually scale. So what is my response? Well, maybe you're right in some situations. For example, even an expert no-code builder today probably wouldn't be able to build a social network with enough server capacity to handle all the billions of users and interactions that Facebook currently handles. It just wouldn't be as highly performant as Facebook is. That's the truth. But I'll tell you what, although I'm not certain if NoCode can get me from A to Z, I am certain that it can get me from A to M or N or O or P. I know this from experience, and I, for one, am extremely satisfied with that potential. If some years down the road, I've reached a point where I've scaled as far as NoCode can take me and then I have to rebuild, well, that's a good problem to have. A good problem that I probably would not have been dealing with were it not for NoCode. Even if Bubble's $100 million investment makes no improvement whatsoever to the performance and scalability side of things from today on, which I guarantee you they will, I'm still running a 7-figure tech product by myself on NoCode, and we have no current intentions of rebuilding off of it. I'll also say this, I've been building with NoCode since 2013, and I can assure you that many of the performance problems that I faced back then, I don't even bat an eyelash at now. They are steadily improving performance and scalability, and I'm a believer that NoCode is headed for great things. I can only imagine how powerful these tools will be in a couple more years. Now you might ask, what about those Bubble users who complain it doesn't scale well and they only have a few hundred users? What about them? Well, I would just say this, no disrespect to them, but if you take a look at the way they've built things on their app, they were probably doomed to fail from the get-go. The way you build matters. I know this from experience. In fact, a couple years ago, I totally revamped the Revitize platform. I rebuilt it from the ground up because my version 1 was simply not very well built. Another time, I had issues with page load speed on one single page of my app. Oh, the page load speed was decent when loading hundreds of records from the database, but once we landed some super large clients and they were loading tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of records, I did notice a pretty extreme lag in the page load speed. I tried tweaking so many different things to no avail. I reached out to Bubble's support team, and even most of their support staff didn't know what to do either. Finally, one day, I was talking to one of their devs, and they released a feature which pinpoints the size of each piece of data that was being downloaded onto the page and where it was coming from. That was a much-needed update. We finally found the culprit, a simple, insignificant conditional formatting rule I had placed on an unnecessary element. As soon as I deleted that conditional, which I didn't even need in the first place, everything loaded way, way faster. I realized then that instead of learning things mostly by myself, I should have invested more of my time into learning the right way to build. Which leads me to our third and final disadvantage, the learning curve. When I was learning NoCode the slow way, mostly by myself, without any courses to teach me, there were many nights with me at 3 a.m. with a Dr. Pepper in my hand, banging my head against the wall because I couldn't figure out the simplest thing. Yes, there is a learning curve. Now, it's not nearly as steep as code, but there still is one, especially if you want to build the right way. That said, I believe that nothing worthwhile in life is easy. And if it were easy, everybody would be doing it. And if everybody had the no-code superpower, it wouldn't be so super, now would it? But I have a feeling that you are not everybody. You're not on the internet watching cat videos. You're here, analyzing an emerging technology called no-code. And you've now found a guy like me that can take you step by step through everything you need to know so you can capitalize on this emerging technology yourself. So all I gotta say is, welcome to the movement.